Well, hey, howdy, hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch, and this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy. And today is Tuesday, and on my channel that means it is tea time and true crime. And today's true crime case is going to be the murder in room 1046. And so let's go ahead and jump into the video. I do have two trigger warnings for you today before I start the video. That's going to be for murder and mentions of suicide. So not much is known about the mysterious man found beaten and stabbed in room 1046 at the Hotel President. What we do know is that on January 2nd of 1935, a man calling himself Roland T. Owen checked into the Hotel President in Kansas City, Missouri. He requested an interior room several floors up, which got him room 1046. Now, Roland had no luggage, just a hairbrush, comb, and toothpaste in his pocket. He was described as being between 20 to 35, with brown hair, a scar on his head above his ear, cauliflower ear, and he was wearing a nice black coat. Maid Mary Soptic said that Roland allowed her to clean the room during his stay. He asked her not to lock the door behind her as he was waiting for a friend who would arrive shortly. Mary said that the blinds were tightly drawn and the lights were all off save one dim lamp. Other members of staff also noted the blinds and lamp. Mary said of Roland, he was either worried about something or afraid, and he always wanted to kinda keep in the dark. At 4 p.m., Mary returned to the room to give Roland fresh towels. She found him on his bed, fully dressed, the room still dark, and the door still unlocked. There was a note that Mary saw, and it read, "Dawn, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Wait." On January 3rd, the next day, Mary returned to clean the room. This time, the door was locked, so she assumed that Roland had locked it after he left. When she entered the room, though, Roland was inside, lights still off. For some reason, the only explanation for the door was that someone else had locked the door from the outside. While Mary was in the room, Roland answered a call saying, "No, Dawn, I don't want to eat. I am not hungry. I just had breakfast. No, I am not hungry." Without hanging up the phone, Roland began asking Mary about her job, inquiring if she cleaned the whole floor and if the hotel was residential. Mary left, but returned that evening to bring more fresh towels. This time she heard two male voices inside. She knocked and a deep voice asked who it was. She explained she was delivering fresh towels, but the voice said they didn't need any. Mary thought this odd as she was in there that morning and knew there were no towels in the room. Regardless of that weird detail, Mary left. Later that night, a woman in 1048 reported hearing loud voices, male and female. Notably though, there was a party in room 1055 that night, so it's unsure if the raised voices were relevant or not. The next morning, January 4th, Della Ferguson started her shift at 7 a.m. and noticed Roland's phone was off the hook and had been for quite some time. She sent bellboy Randolph Probst to go and check on Roland. When Randolph went to the room, the do not disturb sign was on the door. Despite this, he knocked a few times and he heard a voice say, "Come in, turn on the lights." The door was locked though, and no one was coming to open the door. He knocked a few more times before calling through the closed door for Roland to hang the phone back up. He then went downstairs and told Della that the guest was drunk and to give it another hour. At 8:30 a.m., the phone was still not hung up, so bellboy Harold Pike was sent to investigate. He used his pass key to let himself into the room this time. The lights were still off, so using the lights from the hall, Harold could see that Roland was naked on the bed, presumably passed out drunk. He noted that the bedding was darker around Roland's body than the rest of the bed though. The phone stand had been knocked over, so he fixed it and hung up the phone. From 10:30 to 10:45 that morning, the phone was once again off the hook. Randolph was sent again to resolve the issue. He got much more than he expected though when he opened the door to Roland lying motionless on the floor. Randolph later told the police, "When I entered the room, this man was within 2 feet of the door on his knees and elbows, holding his head in his hands. I saw blood on his head. I then turned the lights on. I looked around and saw blood on the walls, on the bed, and in the bathroom. This frightened me, and I immediately left the room and went downstairs." He went downstairs to get the hotel assistant manager, and the two returned to the room. They were unable to enter the room, though, as Roland's body was now blocking the door. Eventually, Roland got up and the employees were able to enter. The manager called police while Roland sat on the edge of the tub. Now, the police arrived with Dr. Harold Flanders of the General Hospital in town. Roland had been bound with a cord which were still around his neck, wrist, and ankles. There was bruising on his neck that indicated someone had tried to strangle him. He had also been stabbed several times. He had been stabbed in the chest, which punctured one of his lungs. He had also been beaten so severely that he had a skull fracture on his right side. When asked who had done this to him, he simply replied, "Nobody." The doctor asked what had caused the injuries then. Roland said that he had fallen and hit his head on the tub. The doctor asked if he had intended to kill himself, but he denied that was the case. After this answer, though, he lost consciousness and was rushed to the hospital. He was in a coma by the time they reached the hospital and died shortly after midnight on January 5th, 1935. An autopsy was obviously performed, and it was determined that he died from his injuries. Dr. Flanders examined the bloodstains in the room to see the full picture. The blood had dried by the time police arrived on scene, so he estimated the wounds were inflicted between 4 and 5 a.m., which is consistent with the bellboy's accounts. The detectives weren't able to find much from the room. There were no clothes in the dresser or closet. The only evidence of there being anything in the room other than what Roland was wearing was the tag of a necktie. The tag indicated the tie had been made by a New Jersey company. The room was also devoid of the standard issue shampoo, soap, and towels. There were no knives in the room, which ruled out a suicide attempt. The cords also implied the involvement of others. The room came with 2 glasses. One was broken in the sink and the other was on the shelf. Some items that were found and bagged as evidence were a hairpin, a safety pin, unsmoked cigarettes, and a full bottle of diluted sulfuric acid. 4 sets of fingerprints were found on the phone. 1 set they thought might belong to a woman. None of the prints matched Roland or any employee at the hotel. At a loss, the police sought help from the media. The newspapers printed stories on the front page the next day. No next of kin could be located for Roland, though. This caused suspicion about his identity. His body was stored in a local funeral home for nearly 2 months. They planned to bury him in the city's Potter Field, but that plan was stopped when an anonymous donor provided funds for a funeral and flower arrangement. The donor made the donation under the name Luis. Roland's true identity was unknown for a year and a half until Ruby Ogletree identified him as her son, Artemis. He was born in Florida in 1915. He was one of 3 kids, and as a child, he had an accident with hot grease that left a scar on the side of his head, the mark that his mother used to identify him all those years later. Artemis left home in 1934 at 19 to hitchhike to California. Ruby had received 2 letters that claimed to be from her son, but the purported distance was as far as Egypt. Regardless, she did wire him money. In August of 1935, she received a call, supposedly from Memphis, Tennessee. The man calling said that Artemis had saved his life in a fight, and that Artemis could not call because he was living in Cairo, where he had married a wealthy woman and was happy. He was apparently unable to write because he had lost one of his thumbs in the fight where he saved the caller. Ruby noted that the man was talking wildly and was clearly irrational, but she spoke to him for 30 minutes. All the letters were confirmed to have been sent after Artemis's death. Records of him traveling to Egypt had never been found, and no other suspects have been found either. The letters, though, were used to link the killing to a 1937 murder in New York, but no charges were filed against the man arrested. One of the men arrested used the alias Donald Kelso, his real name being Joseph Martin. He had been arrested for murder after he killed a man he was sharing a room with and put the body in a trunk to be shipped to Memphis. According to a story in the New Yorker, the Kansas City PD matched samples of his handwriting to that in the letters written to Ruby. No charges have been filed for the murder of Artemis. His files show that different detectives reviewed the case every few years through the 50s. Each time there was a note included that they would keep the case open and follow up. No new evidence was ever uncovered, so the case went cold. Due to the mysterious nature of the case with no answers, there are countless theories about what happened. Some people believe that Artemis was having an affair, hence the fake name, and his scorned lover either killed him or had someone else do the deed. Other theories consider organized crime, Don being a title for a mafia boss, or simply that this was a killing for some personal reason we'll never know. And that is all that I have for you today. That was another shorter case, but a very interesting one and a very mysterious one that I hope one day we'll have answers for. I want to know what your guys' theories are because I'm not sure what I buy into. I think I'm kind of on the page of maybe he was gay and that's why he used the fake name. And he had maybe arranged for a meeting with another gay person who ended up not actually being gay and not being okay with him being gay and then tried to kill him. But it's just all weird and I don't know. But yeah, I don't know what the videos next week are going to be yet. So that's gonna be another surprise. I do know that I'm skipping Legends and Lore again, and then when I come back I'll just do another Chilling Encounters where I talk about anecdotes and stories from people. So if you have any encounters with cryptids or any mythological creatures or anything of that nature, please let me know. You can email me or put it in the comments down below, and I'd love to include viewers' stories as well at some point. But I don't know what creatures I'm going to be talking about, so I'm gonna figure that out at another time. So yeah, I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye!